It was a nightmare weekend that felt like it would never end for the Memphis Grizzlies. Brandon Clark out for the season. Ja Morant away from the team. Dylan Brooks suspended. And last but not least, another fourth quarter meltdown, this time against the Los Angeles Clippers. The Grizzlies are in a tough spot. A lot of things have to change. Let's talk about it right here, right now on Locked on Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked on Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. First and foremost, we thank you for tuning in to Locked on Grizzlies. We appreciate you for tuning in to Locked on Grizzlies. And now we know this episode comes to you at a tough time. You know, the Grizzlies are really struggling right now on and off the floor. But don't you forget that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Remember, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com and use the promo code Locked On. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Just make sure you continue to find us any and everywhere you get your podcasts. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere. Locked On Grizzlies is everywhere, just like the air. Right now, it seems like the problems are everywhere for the Memphis Grizzlies, and they can't escape them. This weekend, it was one thing after another, and that's day. I mean, the news just kept coming in, and none of it was good. Recapped by, a meltdown game, a 135-120. With none other than what's going on with Ja Morant. As most of you, are aware, Ja Morant was involved in a situation that led to the NBA investigating him in an ongoing investigation that's still currently going on at this very second of this recording, and the Grizzlies stepping in and saying that Ja Morant, in a statement, was stepping away from the team. So how did we get here? Well, it was early in the Saturday morning, late Friday night, after the Grizzlies lost to the Denver Nuggets. Ja Morant went on Instagram Live at 4:19 a.m. Central Time. Posted a video, as most of you have either seen or heard about it at this point. In the video, Ja appeared to be having a handgun, near his ear in the video, and it resulted in, him coming out, issuing an apology. It resulted in the Grizzlies, saying Ja Morant was going to take some time to step away from the team. And now, it put the Grizzlies in a position where they're playing without, their two-time all-star point guard. But there are a lot of things, to look at here. And I thought Taylor Jenkins, when he spoke before the game against the Los Angeles Clippers, he kind of hinted on, hit it right on the money on what's at stake pretty much. There's two things here. And Taylor Jenkins as a coach has his perspective, but I think, it's the fans. And then if you just naturally care about someone in Ja's standing. This is a guy who's 23 years old who has, everything in front of him. He has the potential of being the face of the NBA. Taylor Jenkins basically said that there's two elements to this. There's the one element where you're going to hold him accountable. You hold Ja Morant accountable. He's 23. He's been in the NBA for 4 seasons. He should know how to handle himself according, to, the NBA rules and the NBA standards and just the standard of a professional athlete. He's been in this 4 years now, so he should have a better idea. And he let the team down, as he said in his own words from that standpoint. Then there's the other side of things where we'll talk a little bit deeper here And it's more about, being supporting of Ja Morant. We saw, some people come down kind of hard on him since this situation. And we've seen others, Jalen Rose, who I thought had a very, heartfelt thing he said when he basically said, I am Ja Morant. And if you remember Jalen Rose, from his early Michigan days, he was that highly criticized player, as he kind of talked about, in his segment on ESPN where he talked about, he was that guy. Jalen Rose was a part of the Fab Five. He had the bald head, the black socks and the black shoes and all those things which were highly ridiculed, but there were other ways in which Jalen Rose carried himself. And he kind of, took a beating for it, in the media. And then there's guys like Allen Iverson, who said it himself in his own words. He said he took a whooping for players like, Ja Morant and others in the NBA to be themselves. So when you factor in all of that, the Grizzlies players and Taylor Jenkins all had their first opportunity to speak on the situation regarding Ja Morant, and basically all issued their support. I'll go through some of the statements here and some of what they said. In regards to Taylor Jenkins, he basically said, we love him when he was speaking of Ja Morant. He said, we want what's best for him. We support him. It's going to be a difficult process, but we've got a great group to get through this. He also added on, we're taking it one day at a time. This is going to be an ongoing healing process. He said, I can't comment on what the exact timetable is going to be because this is really not a timetable situation. So again, what the Grizzlies said initially was Ja Morant is stepping away for at least 2 games. At least are the key words there, because there is a chance that Ja Morant could be gone for more than 2 games, and that could boil over, to a longer stretch. And as Josh said in his personal statement himself, is he's going to take some time away, to kind of, learn how to better handle, the mental aspect, of being this star player and deal with stress and things like that better. But Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and Tys Jones after the game also spoke, on the Ja Morant situation, and all kind of sort of similarly, like Taylor Jenkins, kind of wrapped their arms, around him and, said some good things. Here's Tys Jones basically saying it's a lot of emotion in it. He said, you just want the best for him. He said, that's all I'm going to comment on that situation. He said, obviously, it's a tough personal matter and something we're dealing with in-house. He said, it's an emotional time. Desmond Bane later added that we're wrapping our arms around him and showing him our love. Whenever he is ready to come back, we'll welcome him with open arms. Jaren Jackson Jr. added, I'm happy for whatever he decides to do. I trust his judgment. He's going to do what's best for him, and he's going to come back and take over the league again. A lot of support, it sounds like, around the Grizzlies. And you see, based on the things that Taylor Jenkins and the players said, a lot of this is being handled, in-house as well. So this is a big moment in Ja Morant's career. I've talked about it a lot, how this city has kind of rallied around him. I'm born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I spent my entire life, for the most part, here in Memphis. And the level of love, the respect, the role model that Ja Morant is in Memphis, it is incomparable to any athlete of my lifetime here. Penny Hardaway is an athlete I think about a lot. And I tell people, when I lived in Philadelphia for 2.5 years, and, I was in New York and all these other cities, and, we talk about Memphis basketball, I would say Penny Hardaway was our Michael Jordan. And I always thought that was a fair assessment. That's how we view Penny. But the difference is Penny is our homegrown kid. Penny grew up, born and raised in Memphis. Now he's back, coaching the Tigers, doing a great job over there. But Ja Morant, in a different light, is the biggest Grizzlies player on a national level that we've ever seen. Penny never played, with the Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant is playing in the NBA with the hometown team. He has a Nike deal. He has a deal with Powerade, Hulu, Beats by Dre. The list goes on. This is one of the biggest athletes in the game of basketball, and he has a lot on the line to consider here. So it'll be interesting to see how Ja Morant responds from this, how his career goes from this standpoint. And you got to think about it not just from the basketball standpoint, but this is a young man, a talented young man who at the age of 23 has so much weight on his shoulders, carrying the torch, for his family in that light, being that financial provider for all the people around you. And he has the group of friends. Everyone says, well, not everyone, a lot of people say he should change his group around him and things like that. But as someone who, has been around and covering John Morant for more than a year now, I can tell you that he is extremely loyal to those around him, and that's very unlikely. He really values those people. It's a reason they go on the road with him to games. It's the reason, a lot of them sit courtside at games. And they're at a lot of his, sponsored events, around the city and his community events. Those people really matter to Ja Morant. It's very unlikely that they go anywhere. But that's where, that situation is with Ja Morant right now. And we'll switch it now to on the court and talk about the Grizzlies game last night against the Los Angeles Clippers. But before we get to that game, I got to talk to you about the one and only Prize Picks. See, Prize Picks is where you can go download the app right now first before you can figure out what you need to get. You need to go download the app and go over to prizepicks.com if you don't want to download the app. It's a 100% deposit match of up to $100, and you can use the promo code locked in. Well, you say, how does Prize Picks work, right? Well, it's simple. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you use the NBA, for example. Pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than your Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Remember, with Prize Picks, these are some of the keys. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. And guess what? Prize Picks offer you projections not only in the NBA, but you got MLB, seasons here. You also do other sports as well, NFL, MLB, college football, college basketball. That's men and women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing. The list goes on. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less with Prize Picks. It's just that easy. And the best part to a lot of you, I know you like this, safe and fast withdrawals. All you have to do is go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. Remember, if you're a first-time user, you can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. All you have to do is put in the promo code locked on. Very simple. Don't forget to enter the promo code locked on and sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. The Grizzlies, right now, we talked about all the things off the court, but the performance on Sunday on the court did not help. We'll talk about that coming up after the break. So the Grizzlies took on the Los Angeles Clippers in their first game back, after all of the, things off the court with Ja Morant and, all the conversation and going on around the team in-house and whatnot. And you know what? It wasn't a bad performance. It was 135-129 loss to the Clippers. It wasn't a bad performance, but the overshadowing thing of all the great things that happened. The great things that happened include a big game from Tys Jones stepping in as a starter for Ja Morant. David Roddy in the first quarter scored 8 points. Didn't score again after that, but big first quarter for him stepping in, starting for Dillon Brooks. Jaren Jackson Jr. was really good. Desmond Bane had 30 points. I think that's his sixth 30-point game of the season. In a 51-point third quarter. It's tied for the highest scoring quarter in the NBA this season. I mean, the Grizzlies went off in that third quarter and ended up leading after 3 by 15 points. But they didn't win. Which leads me to the point here, and that's the fourth quarter meltdowns. Another fourth quarter meltdown by the Grizzlies, and it leads me to think, what's happening? I know a lot of you are asking the question because I've seen people point to, rotation things and say, oh, he's taking out, Taylor Jenkins is taking out important players in the fourth quarter in certain times, and that's when teams are going on their runs. Yes, I agree to a certain degree. But there's a makeup thing here too. This is deeper than just our best players are not on the floor at a certain period of time. That's a part of it. And I've written about this, I've talked about this. I think, the best way you talk about the rotations in the fourth quarter, there are some ways you can switch that up. Ja Morant, for example, he sits usually the first 4, 5, 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, and usually comes in around the 7 minute mark, 6 minute mark, somewhere around there. And Ja Morant averages 32 minutes, a little bit over 32 minutes per game. He's outside of the top 50 in NBA players. Simple fix there is to knock that total up a little bit more. And if you don't want to knock that total up a little bit more, Ja often plays the entire third quarters, if not the entire third quarter, most of the third quarter. Simple fix is late in the third quarter, the opposing team isn't playing a lot of his star players. All you have to do is say, hey, instead of letting Ja play the entire third quarter, let's take Ja out with 2 minutes left in the third. Let's take Ja out with 4 minutes left in the third, and then bring him in earlier in the fourth quarter so you can have him for a longer period of stretch of time when other teams are playing their star players, for longer periods in that fourth quarter as well. So that's basically what's happening here. A lot of teams are playing their stars and they're riding them in the fourth quarter when the Grizzlies are sticking to their normal rotations, trusting their depth, and they're getting burned by that. But I mentioned makeup, right? Let me talk about that a little bit here. 3 guys in this game and come to mind, and that's Tys Jones, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr., the 3 guys who had the biggest scoring outputs overall. The Grizzlies, if you look at just their quarter-by-quarter scoring numbers in this game against the Los Angeles Clippers, they tell the story. 28 points in the first quarter, 33 in the second, 51 points in the third quarter, and 17. They scored a third, 17 points in the fourth quarter, a third of their points that they scored in the third quarter. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. We've talked about it all season. Grizzlies are top 10 in net rating in the first quarter, top 10 in the second quarter, top 10 in the third quarter. I believe at last check, they were 29th just a couple of days ago, and I would assume that's not gotten any better. 29th in net rating in the fourth quarter. So I talk about makeup, right? So let me get into that real quick here on what I mean by the makeup of the Grizzlies in the fourth quarter and why they're struggling. Desmond Bane, great player. I'm very fond of his game, very fond of his efficiency, but Desmond Bane isn't the best, shot creator. We've talked about his biggest struggles offensively is scoring around the rim. The easiest ways to score, when you talk about fourth quarter scoring is you put your head down and you get to the rim, you get to your spots on the floor. Desmond Bane's spots on the floor usually come, we saw a lot of transition 3-pointers, a lot of pushing the basketball in transition and things like that. Teams like the Clippers in this game, they're going to ramp up the intensity in the fourth quarter. It comes down to just skill, makeup, and you don't see a lot of, there's not a lot of, side to side, turnarounds, jumpers, and those type of moves in Desmond Bane's game. A lot of downhill attacking from him that I think we need to see more of, but he's not a great finisher around the rim, and I think he kind of shies away from doing that. As you watch the Clippers game, he took a lot of jumpers, down the stretch of that game and missed them, especially from 3-point range. Jaren Jackson Jr., some people are blaming the coaching, right? Blaming the coaching because Jaren Jackson Jr., they're feeding him in the post. They're feeding him in the post all game long in this game. I believe he shot 8 of 18 against the Clippers and scored 24 points. In the fourth quarter, Jaren took his break, which a lot of people don't like when he takes that break, but he took a break in the fourth quarter, and he comes back into the game, and pretty much for the last 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, Jaren Jackson Jr. is camping around at the three-point line, and that's the problem. But I'll challenge you and say this. Is it the coaching's fault? Or does Jaren Jackson Jr. need to say, hey, give me the ball, demand the ball, go down the block, raise up 2 hands, and say, I want the basketball? I haven't seen a lot of that. How about Jaren demand the ball more? You're the all-star. You have shown the ability to dominate through 3 quarters. You've shown the ability, like the Orlando Magic game, to dominate late in the fourth quarter when the team says, we're going to go through Jaren. Jaren Jackson Jr. has to display that skill in order for the Grizzlies to be able to finish out games because he's the one guy. Desmond Bane is not great at getting to the free throw line. He's the one guy without Ja Morant in this lineup who is capable of getting to the free throw line at a high level. And that leads me to the other guy, Tys Jones, right? I think Tys Jones is, arguably the best backup point guard in the game, and he is phenomenal at his job. He was phenomenal in this game. He's phenomenal in that third quarter, a 20-point third quarter for Tys Jones. But with all the great things that Tys Jones does, the shortcomings in his game kind of fit into the shortcomings of the fourth quarter. I looked it up. Tys Jones, in 10 starts this season, has taken 23 free throw attempts. 23 free throw attempts in 10 starts. Why is that? Well, if you look at the shot distribution for Tys Jones, it's a lot of floaters and not high contact floaters. It's usually, floaters shine away from the contact and things like that. It's a lot of pull up, jumpers, pull up in the mid range, pull up at the 3-point line, etc., and spot up shots. So not a lot of, driving into the contact. We don't see him finishing layups or even attempting layups, around the rim and, doing a lot of things that initiate contact in those sort of ways. So Tys Jones' game is kind of tailored to fade, late in the fourth quarter. If he isn't, making those type of shots? And again, you're not going to get as many open spot up 3-point shots because the defense is ticking it up in the fourth quarter. And, those floaters will come there time to time, depending on who's around you on the floor. But they're not as easy to get as well either. So that's the struggles. Because if you look at this Clippers game, I think it's a perfect example of what I'm saying here. The Clippers have guys in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George who can put their heads down, who can score at all three levels, and who can get to the free throw line. I know there were some missed calls, in this game that went the Clippers' way, especially late with Paul George. Offensive foul call, I think, should have gotten called there. But the Grizzlies, 11 of 15 from the free throw line. The Clippers were 33 of 35. Yes, some of that is, some misdistribution there. But a lot of that is the Clippers have guys who are going to put their heads down and can get to the free throw line. Whereas the Grizzlies, guys like Desmond Bane, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Tys Jones, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Not a lot of guys, I mentioned Jaren Jackson Jr., 6 of 7 from the free throw line. That's the one guy who can kind of, forcefully create that contact, and teams are going to foul him. But if you go to the Clipper side, Kawhi Leonard was 13 of 13 from the free throw line. Paul George was 14 of 15. That says the story there. Teams who have those type of guys are better equipped at closing in the fourth quarter. That's why Ja Morant is so important when he's knocking down free throws late in the game and when he's, at his best. So that's where the Grizzlies are from those areas. Got an encouraging thing to talk about after the break. That's Steven Adams, and we'll give an update on where he is. But before we get to that, I got to talk to you. Let me lick my lips real quick. I got to talk to you about Built Bar. Oh, it's so good to me. Looking for a delicious treat. Look, you don't want all the ones with the fat and the calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. See, we just got through the holidays, and look, I know my goal right now is to eat a little bit healthier this year. And if you're like me and you want to eat a little bit healthier, but you don't want to compromise the taste, right? Like, you got to have good taste at the same time, then you got to try Built Bar. Built Bar is where healthy is actually tasty. And look, here's the thing. They come in so many good flavors. Churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, man, but they do it every time. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And guess what? Now you don't need to wait around and go online to built.com to get these boxes. You can go to your local Walmart. You can go to Sam's Club right now, and they'll have Built Bars there right for you. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You got a Sam's card? Well, guess what? You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream if you go to Walmart. If you go to Sam's Club, you can get a 13-bar box of some hit flavors. I'm talking brownie batter, churro. And guess what? When you go get it, I want you to hit me up. Hit up. You see my name at Damichael C on Twitter, and let me know what you think about that Built Bar as well. But now that we're done talking about Bill Barr, I want to talk to you about Steven Adams and the latest update on him. We're going to talk about that after the break. Steven Adams is important to the Grizzlies, and it was good to hear Taylor Jenkins, give an update on where the big man is, because I know a lot of you have been worried, right? Uh, Taylor Jenkins initially said, that Steven Adams was back to five on five. I think it was about a week ago, and he said that things were trending towards the big man returning to on the tail end of the road trip. Well, the tail end of the road trip is here. So Steven Adams should be back, right? Or close to back. Well, on Saturday, Saturday evening's, injury report, the Grizzlies ruled Steven Adams out for Sunday's game against the Clippers. And I know most people were hoping for a doubtful or a questionable or something other than out. So we got a chance to talk uh, to Taylor Jenkins and give you an idea of just, what he said in terms of where Steven Adams is at this point. And it's basically simple. Steven Adams is a big part of this team. He's a big part of where the Grizzlies are. But at the end of the day, they need Steven Adams. And here's what Taylor Jenkins said, in his pregame post-press conference about, he said it could be at the end of this road trip, but has the potential to be longer than that. He also mentioned that Steven Adams did 5-on-5 before the game on Sunday, did some 5-on-5 work, looked good. But as Taylor Jenkins always says, it's going to come down to the medical staff. They're going to see, in the morning, as he said, how Steven Adams reacts. So overall, it doesn't sound like there was any setback or anything. Just sounds like more, Taylor Jenkins was hoping for the tail end of the road trip. But, there's the possibility that he still plays in the Lakers game. But I'm willing to bet that it's probably going to be, the game after that against Golden State, where it sounds like Steven Adams is getting closer to a return. But either way it goes, Steven Adams is very close. He's doing a lot of 5-on-5. He did some 5-on-5 Sunday. And, a lot of times when we hear 5-on-5, that's kind of like, oh, yeah, he's crossing off the last box. Taylor Jenkins was very careful to let people know, hey, yes, 5-on-5 is basically, it's big, but it is not the last step. There are some medical things that have to be fulfilled at this point, and that's where the Grizzlies are with their update on Steven Adams. Once Steven Adams gets back, a lot of the issues that the Grizzlies are having can kind of, be fixed. Going back to this Clippers game again, one of the biggest takeaways was the Clippers, despite playing really small. I mean, so small to the fact that Xavier Tillman had to guard Kawhi Leonard, for a large chunk of the game while they were in the games at the same time. But they still owned the glass. 53-26. The Clippers doubled up the Grizzlies on the glass. 13 offensive rebounds to 2. And you just don't see that. You just don't see that with the Grizzlies. And that's mainly because Steven Adams not in the lineup. And it's not like, it's who you think. Yes, Zubac had 9 boards in 18 minutes. So he did what he had to do. But Paul George, double-digit rebounds. Kawhi Leonard, double-digit rebounds. And there you have it right there. Those two guys finished with double-digit rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr., who basically is your biggest guy in the lineup now without Steven Adams, 5 rebounds in 35 minutes. You just need more. You need more assertiveness there. And Jaren's never been a great rebounder. He's never was projected, to be a great rebounder because he wasn't a great rebounder in college either. But no one on the Grizzlies had more than 5 rebounds. Even Xavier Tillman Sr., 34 minutes, 5 boards for him as well. Oh, boy, they're waiting on Steven Adams to get back in that area. And it's not just that. We talk about, the rebounding a lot. There's screen setting. There's, screen assists and so much more that he brings to the game. But you know what? Dylan Brooks, should be back soon. as well after serving his 1 game suspension. I'm sure most of you have been informed on how that kind of works now. But now that he has 16 technical fouls, where do he goes from here is pretty much if he picks up his 18th technical, that's going to be another 1 game suspension. The 20th technical will be another 1 game suspension. And now from this point on, from the 16th technical and throughout the rest of the season, he'll be fined at least $5,000. So Dylan Brooks got a lot of money on the line. Might want to tone it down a little bit there. And last but not least, I wanted to send you condolences out to Brandon Clark. He suffered a season-ending torn Achilles injury. Did not talk about him much on today's episode. We will talk about the ramifications of that injury later, but Brandon Clark has been a big part of this season. We spent a lot of time before the season talking about if he deserved the contract extension, if he wanted to pursue the contract extension. And I know I even at a certain point made the case like, what if Brandon Clark says, hey, you know what? I can play myself into making more money and turn down an extension at the beginning of the season. Now looking back on it, for his, personal, for his personal sake, it's turned out to be a great thing for him that he, signed a contract extension and got that security, that financial security for himself as he has a long healing process ahead, with a torn Achilles injury. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Once again, I appreciate you for listening. We got so much more to talk about. Me and my partner, Joe Mullinax, will be back with you on tomorrow's episode as well. But before you go, I want you to go check out Locked On Game to Game. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game has you covered in every game across the league with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game Locked On, and it's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast. Locked On Grizzlies fans, we truly appreciate you. I think we covered a lot today. Make sure you continue to let me know what else you want us to talk about. What else do you want us to cover? Me and Joe try to cover all the bases there, and we'll continue to make sure we, take care of all those things. But continue to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, all of those good things to Locked On Grizzlies content. And we appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. So once again, I'm your host, Damichael Cole. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On